Vote counts, and we are now going to be joined by Otis Sanford. He has a very busy schedule, but he was kind enough to squeeze some time in for us this morning. Otis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. All right, Otis, let's just start big. Where are we? What is going on in the race as of right now, 8:07 a.m. Central Time here on Wednesday?
Wow. Well, where we are, I think the best way to describe it is we're in a state of flux here. Key swing states still have votes to be counted, primarily Michigan, even Georgia, but mostly Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And this race is still up for grabs, despite what the president said overnight, claiming victory. There are a lot of absentee votes to be counted in all of those states, primarily in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, that so-called blue wall in the Rust Belt states.
Otis, what can you tell us? I feel like a lot of people might have questions about the absentee ballots and the fact that we are still counting and what that looks like coming out the day after. And obviously, it's going to take some days for these states to figure out the numbers and get everything counted.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of factors that enter into this, and it's not all. It shouldn't be all that confusing. I'm sure it is, but when you take into account the coronavirus pandemic, you have a situation where a lot of people did not want to risk going to a polling place, so they were intent on mailing in their ballots, or in some states, not in Tennessee, but in some states you could drop off your ballot at an authorized drop-off box. Well, a lot of states, by law, said you could not start counting those ballots until Election Day. Some of them, you couldn't even start counting them until the polls closed last night. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. And it's going to take a while to count those because they are paper ballots that some cases may have to be scanned in, but you got to check them. And so it's going to take a while. So that's what's going on here. It's not totally unusual for the counting to continue the day after or days after the election. But this year is even more so because of the coronavirus.
And we've already heard from both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin saying today is the earliest that those votes could be counted by. It could take more days. So again, patience is key. Otis, I'm curious, as you're watching the results roll in last night, is this race closer than you expected?
Oh, absolutely it is. I mean, I was one of those who believed that because of everything that has happened, just honestly 4 years of chaos, overlaid by the pandemic and the criticism around the president's response to the pandemic. I believed, as others did, that Joe Biden would likely win this I thought fairly easily. Boy, was I wrong about that. But I had said earlier this week that it would be two scenarios here. Either Biden would win in a landslide, which didn't happen, or it would be so close that we would wind up going to court. And I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to wind up going to court, which is the worst scenario. It's going to put the country through a whole lot of angst and trauma. But I think that's where we're headed.
And something that, for some, that's not as shocking, Tennessee, Trump won Tennessee. Tennessee stays a red state. And for us locally, there are a lot of other things that we are voting on in Tennessee. And Marquita Bradshaw, she did not win last night's election. What did you see just from the local standpoint of the other offices?
Well, yeah, when you talk about Marquita Bradshaw, yeah, she was defeated and pretty easily defeated, and everybody expected that. I mean, she didn't have the funds to mount a statewide campaign, and it was going to be really tough in red state Tennessee. I mean, if former popular governor Phil Bredesen could not win in Tennessee, there was no reason to think that Marquita Bradshaw could do it herself without the money to really mount a campaign. Otherwise, there were some local state legislative races that bared watching last night. I think one of the more surprising ones is in District 90, where Tory Harris, a pretty much unknown Democrat, easily defeated former Democrat John DeBerry. John DeBerry had been kicked out of the Republican Party for voting too often with Republicans in the legislature, and then he turned around and ran as an independent. I thought he would do better than he did. He got defeated pretty easily. And then I was watching a couple other races. Mark White, the incumbent Republican in District 83, apparently he won his reelection. And then there was an open seat out in the Bartlett area, District 97. Gabby Salinas ran a spirited race, and it was heavily contested, but it looks like she fell short as well.
Otis, from the bigger picture, no huge surprise that, as Meghan mentioned, Tennessee goes red, surrounding states, Arkansas goes red, Mississippi goes red, but a lot of big things happening in Mississippi yesterday. What did you make of that? Yeah,
a lot of other things did happen. I thought that Mike Espy would do better with a heavy turnout in that Senate race against Sidney Hyde-Smith, and he fell short. The medical marijuana referendum, I was surprised that it won, but I was not surprised that the Mississippi voters approved the new state flag. I think despite the politics down in Mississippi, people are tired of fighting over that flag. And it was either approve this one or come back later and approve another one, because they were not going back to the flag that had the Confederate emblem within its design. So I expected that to happen. The marijuana vote approving medical marijuana, that was kind of surprised me.
And Otis, I can't imagine what these next few days will look like for you as we still wait and now kind of wake up to the news of we're still just not sure. How are you doing, and what's this week going to look like for you and on your schedule?
Busy as can be. In fact, when I get off this call, I'll be headed to the TV station to do the morning 9 o'clock show doing the 10 o'clock show last night. And at some point this week, I've got to write a newspaper column for the Daily Memphian. I have no idea what that's going to say. I do a lot of media, and that's what I do. And in addition to that, I got to teach some classes. So it's going to be a busy week for me. But it's an exciting time. It's a historic time. If you are a journalist and a political junkie like I am, you get immersed in all of this stuff.
It is a bit like the Super Bowl of the political side of things, as for lack of a better metaphor. One thing I did want to ask you about, I did want to ask you about the comments made by both candidates last night. Joe Biden addressed some of his followers, saying he felt that he was on track to win. Then that, of course, presented Trump with the potential to tweet, and then followed it up with comments of his own, saying that as far as he was concerned, he had already won, called the election a fraud on the American public, and said he planned to take the battle to the U.S. Supreme Court. He did not explain what that meant. I'm curious your interpretation of that.
Well, I think that they are going to go to court, and they're going to try to invalidate any votes that are being counted today after the election. Now, I just don't see how any court can side with that, because the ballots were submitted on time. There were tons of them, primarily because of the coronavirus pandemic, and people have made accommodations for that. And so the votes just need to be counted. That's just we live in a democratic society, and the votes need to be counted. So I just don't see how that holds water. But I do think that that's what the president is going to try to do. He's going to try to go to court, or he is going to court, to stop the counting. And we're not talking about a recount. We're like what happened in Florida in 2000. We're talking about the initial counting of votes that were legally submitted on time. And so that's going to be the fight in the courts. And I don't relish this. I hate that it's happening. It's going to even further divide the country, and it could set up potential for demonstrations and problems in the streets, and we just don't need that.
Yeah, we definitely do not need that. Otis, you talked about how obviously there are so many mail-in ballots due to the coronavirus. There's also a lot of people who chose to early vote, and different states have different methods. Different states allow it, different states do not. We saw that here in Tennessee, we were allowed to early vote. In Mississippi, they were not allowed to early vote. What's your viewpoint on how we have kind of handled early voting?
Here in Shelby County, I think we did an exemplary job. The Shelby County Election Commission has had its issues over the years. They're well documented. Excuse me. But this time, they really came through with shining colors. They were organized. By all accounts that I'm getting, and I have not gotten anything negative, they have done a splendid job here, setting up the absentee count yesterday at the FedEx Forum on the floor to keep everybody safe and organized. That worked very well, and they got it all done. So I think that they should be congratulated, the people at the Election Commission, for doing a splendid job here locally.
Otis, you do a splendid job always. We so appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this morning and to get us all caught up on everything going on. I know you have a busy day ahead. We'll let you get to it, but we just really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Otis. So, patience.
Patience, and I think a good reminder, too, what he said, when you asked him what his week looked like, work. Doing what he normally does. What are the three of us doing this morning? We are here at work, and millions of Americans across the country are doing the exact same thing. So our daily life in this one moment is not dictated by who is president of the United States. And for now, we have to continue to live our lives, do our jobs, wait and see.
Yeah.
Wait and see.
I can get with that, I guess. I can try to get. I'm going to try. I'm going to try to get with that. I'm going to try. Doing this.
Are you okay, man?
I didn't say it very convincingly.
Patience. That's what I keep telling myself. I keep telling that's the one thing I have had an issue with dealing with before, and now I'm realizing that I'm going to have a harder issue to deal with it now. But patience is key, and just surrounding yourself with people that you love, with people that you trust, and we're going to get through this. I'm faithful, and so I know what I need to do. It's going to take me a lot of prayer. And so I know who is really in control, and if you agree with that or not, that's what works for me. And so I'm not going to give it all to this.
You know what they say about patience? Mm-hmm. It's a virtue.
Yes, it is.
It's a virtue. All right, let's take a quick break. We will come back. We'll talk about some things that happen in sports, NFL trade deadline, some college football news. We have D'Angelo Williams still ahead, and a special visit from Cycle Bar Memphis at 9:01 today as well. We'll see you when we come back.